It was a quiet afternoon in a small town called Maple Creek, located deep in Oregon. The air was cold, the trees were tall, and everything seemed peaceful, too peaceful. A 17-year-old girl named Emily Carter had just moved into a new house with her mom, Sarah Carter. The house was old, built in the 1950s, and had been empty for many years. But it was cheap, and they needed a fresh start after Emily's father passed away. The first day in the house went normal. Boxes were unpacked, furniture was arranged, and Emily chose her bedroom and attic room with wooden floors and a single window facing the forest. While cleaning the attic closet, Emily found an old box. Inside it was a doll. It had red curly hair, pale skin, and glassy blue eyes. The doll wore a faded blue dress and black shoes. A tiny paper tag was tied around its wrist. It said in small letters, "Her name is Clara. Don't leave her alone." Emily laughed nervously. "Creepy," she whispered, tossing the doll on her shelf and forgetting about it. But that night, something strange happened. When Emily woke up at 2:30 a.m. to get water, she noticed the doll was no longer on the shelf. It was sitting on her study chair, facing her, hands folded neatly on its lap. Emily froze. "Did I move it?" she thought. She shook her head, took the doll, placed it back on the shelf, and went back to sleep. The next morning, the doll was on her desk, in a different position, leaning slightly forward as if it had something to say. Emily stared at the doll on her desk. "Okay, this is weird," she muttered. She looked around the room. The window was closed. No one had entered. Her mom was downstairs, making breakfast. Emily picked up the doll and checked it carefully. No batteries. No buttons. It was just a simple, old-fashioned porcelain doll. Trying to brush it off, she placed Clara inside the closet this time and shut the door tight. That night, Emily stayed awake, pretending to sleep. She kept one eye on the closet. Hours passed. Nothing moved. But at exactly 3:33 a.m., she blinked and the closet door was wide open. Clara was gone. Emily sat up fast, heart racing. She turned slowly. There, on the floor beside her bed, was the doll. Sitting. Smiling. Closer than before. Emily screamed. Her mom ran upstairs. "What happened? Are you okay?" Emily pointed to the doll. She moved on her own. Sarah looked confused. "Emily, it's just a doll. You probably moved it and forgot." "No, I swear I didn't." But her mom had already walked out. Emily didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, Emily researched the house's history at the local library. What she found chilled her to the bone. A girl named Rebecca Thompson, who lived in the house in 1972, had died under strange circumstances. She was 9 years old and always seen carrying a red-haired doll named Clara. Her last journal entry read, "Clara doesn't like being watched. She moves when you're not looking. She told me things I can't repeat. Mommy says I'm lying. But Clara said she'll make them believe." Emily slammed the book shut, her hands shaking. She looked over her shoulder. Was that whispering? No one was there. But in her backpack, somehow, the doll had returned. Emily ran home with the doll in her backpack. She threw it on the floor of her room and yelled, "Leave me alone." But the doll just sat there, silent, with its glassy blue eyes staring at her. That night, Emily made a plan. She placed her phone on a shelf, facing the doll, and pressed record before going to sleep. "Let's see if you really move," she whispered. She woke up again at 3:33 a.m. Her phone was on the floor. The screen was cracked. And the doll was sitting on her pillow right next to her face. Emily screamed and jumped out of bed. Tears filled her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" That's when she saw it. Words had been written on her mirror in red lipstick. "You broke the rule. Don't watch me." Emily's hands trembled. She ran to her mom's room. But her mom wasn't there. The bed was made. The lights were off. No sign of her. Emily searched the whole house. The kitchen was dark. The back door was open. And then she saw something outside, lying on the ground. Her mom's phone. With one picture on the screen. A photo of her mom sleeping. And standing behind her was the doll. Emily grabbed the doll, ran into the woods behind her house, and threw it into the river. She watched it sink under the water. I'm done with you, she said. But when she turned around to walk back, the doll was sitting on the trail, soaking wet, smiling wider than ever. Emily ran back home, locking every door and window. She picked up the house phone to call 911. But the line was dead. No dial tone. She tried calling from her mobile. No signal. She felt trapped, alone. Her mom was missing. The doll kept coming back. And now no way to call for help. Emily sat on the floor, hugging her knees. That's when she saw something on the TV. It turned on by itself. The screen showed old news clips. One after another. Girl disappears. Last seen with a red-haired doll. Family vanished. Doll found on the porch. House sold again after strange activity reported. Every face looked scared. Every family had one thing in common: Clara. Emily finally understood. The doll wasn't just haunted. She was hunting. And her mom was the next victim. Suddenly, the TV switched off. The room became cold. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Tap, tap, tap. Emily held her breath. The sound was slow, steady, getting closer. Then silence. She peeked outside her room. Nothing there. But when she turned back, the doll was sitting on her bed. And next to the doll was a folded note. Emily slowly opened it. It said, "Play with me, or I'll play with her forever." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She had no choice now. She had to find out where Clara came from and how to stop her. Emily knew she had to find answers and fast. She remembered something strange when they first moved in. The basement door was nailed shut. Her mom said, "It's probably just full of junk." But what if something was hidden down there? She grabbed a flashlight and a hammer. With shaking hands, she pulled out the nails one by one. The door creaked open. Cold air rushed out, carrying a strange smell like old wood and something rotten. She stepped down the stairs slowly. The basement was dark and dusty. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling. Broken furniture was scattered across the floor. And then she saw it. A small wooden rocking chair in the middle of the room. On the chair was an old photo album, and beside it, a baby blanket with the name Clara stitched in pink. Emily opened the photo album. The first picture showed a little girl holding the same red-haired doll. The next picture showed the same girl, but now the doll was in a different position. In every picture, the doll moved closer. The final picture made Emily freeze. It was a photo of Rebecca, the girl from the 1972 newspaper. But standing behind her was someone else. A woman. Pale. Thin. Dressed in black. No eyes. The name under the photo, Miss Elira the dollmaker. Emily whispered, "Who is she?" And then, behind her, a voice answered. "She made me." Emily turned slowly. The doll was sitting on the bottom step. Clothes dirty. Hair wet. Eyes glowing faintly. But now, her mouth was slightly open. Emily dropped the photo album and backed away slowly. The doll's mouth was definitely open now. It whispered again, in a voice that didn't sound like a child. It was cold. Empty. Like wind blowing through a graveyard. "She made me from pain." Emily's heart pounded. Who made you?" The doll slowly lifted one arm and pointed toward the wall. Emily turned her flashlight to look. There, behind an old wooden shelf, was something strange, a door made of bricks. But the bricks didn't match the rest of the wall. They looked newer, like someone had tried to hide something. Emily grabbed a metal pipe and started hitting the bricks. One by one, they fell away. Behind the wall was a small room. Inside, it was dark. But on the floor were dolls, dozens of them. All with glass eyes. All facing the door. Some broken, some burned. And in the center of the room was a mirror. Emily stepped closer. The mirror didn't show her reflection. It showed a workshop, lit by candlelight. A woman stood there, tall, thin, with long black hair. Her face was blurry, but her hands were fast, cutting, painting doll faces. And on the table was Clara. The woman looked up, straight into Emily's eyes, and smiled. Then the mirror cracked. Emily screamed and fell back. The dolls in the room began to turn their heads. One by one, all looking at her. Then Clara spoke again. "She gave me life. Now I give her souls." Emily finally understood. Clara was never just a doll. She was a trap. A doorway. A servant to something darker, the doll maker. And her mother was already part of the deal. Emily ran upstairs, locking the basement door behind her. She couldn't stop shaking. Clara wasn't just a haunted doll, she was collecting souls for the doll maker Miss Alira. Her mom was missing. The mirror showed another world. And now Emily was next. She looked down at the doll still sitting on the floor. Clara tilted her head and whispered, "If you want your mom back, play with me." Suddenly, the lights flickered. The walls began to shake. Emily screamed, "What do you want from me?" A sharp wind blew through the house. The doll floated in the air, spinning slowly, and then dropped a small piece of paper into Emily's hands. It was an old, yellowed invitation. It said, "The dollmaker invites you to play. Rules are simple. 1. Don't look away. 2. Don't leave the house. 3. If you lose, you join the others." Emily looked at the doll. Its eyes glowed bright red now. The house doors slammed shut. Windows locked themselves. The game had begun. Suddenly, the clock struck 3:33 a.m. The lights went out. Total silence. Then footsteps. From upstairs. Someone was walking. No something. Emily held a candle and slowly walked to the hallway. She heard a laugh. Soft. Childlike. Coming from her bedroom. She opened the door slowly. Inside, she saw something she couldn't believe. Her mom. Sitting on the floor. Eyes closed. Mouth stitched shut. And next to her was a full-sized version of Clara. Not a doll anymore. A girl. Pale skin. Red curls. Blue eyes. Clara smiled. "Your turn," she said. Emily couldn't breathe. Her mom's stitched mouth, eyes closed, like a puppet. And Clara, no longer just a doll, now looked like a real girl, standing tall, but her movements were jerky, like a marionette. Emily stepped forward. "Let her go." Clara tilted her head. "You want her back? Then win the game." Suddenly, the walls of the room changed. The wallpaper peeled away. The floor turned black, cold, like stone. Emily was no longer in her house. She was in the dollmaker's world. Everything was twisted like a broken version of her home. The rules of the game floated in the air. Level 1: Don't blink. A doll will appear. You must stare at it. If you blink, it moves. A bell rang. In the corner of the room stood a tall doll with no face. Emily locked eyes with it. The doll didn't move. Her eyes began to water. She couldn't blink. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Her eyes burned. Then, she blinked. The doll was suddenly inches from her face, hands out, reaching. Emily screamed and ducked. The candle in her hand went out. Darkness. Heavy breathing behind her. But then a light. A door appeared ahead. She ran through it, slamming it shut. Level 2: Find the real Clara. 5 dolls. 1 is real. Choose wrong, lose a piece of yourself. In front of her stood 5 identical dolls, each one smiling, red-haired, blue-eyed. They began singing. Round and round, who will she choose? Pick the wrong one, and your soul you'll lose. Emily looked at each doll. Then she remembered. In the real Clara's eye, there was a tiny crack in the left glass. She chose the second doll. Nothing happened. The dolls stopped singing. Then the others vanished. Emily had passed. But her mom was still not free. Clara's voice echoed again. Final level. Come find me. The floor cracked. Emily fell down, down into darkness. She landed in a dusty, candle-lit room. In the center stood a tall figure swinging something with black thread. The dollmaker, Miss Alira. She turned around slowly. No eyes. No mouth. Only a stitched face. And in her arms, a doll with Emily's face. Emily stared in horror. The dollmaker held a doll that looked exactly like her, same clothes, same face, same scar on her hand. Miss Alira tilted her head, holding the doll by the neck. Then she spoke, but not with a mouth. The voice came from everywhere in the room. Deep, echoing, hollow. Your body is mine now. Your soul fits perfectly. Emily stepped back, but the ground behind her crumbled into black mist. There was no going back. She shouted, "What do you want from me?" Alira raised her hand. The doll in her fingers began to move, its eyes opening. Emily felt a sharp pain in her chest, like her soul was being pulled out. She dropped to her knees. But then she remembered the invitation. Don't look away. Don't leave the house. If you lose, you join the others. She hadn't lost yet. She looked around quickly. In the corner, on a shelf, was the original Clara doll, the first one. Emily stood, wobbling, and ran to the doll. She grabbed it and shouted, "You want me? Then take her back first." She threw Clara's doll body into the fire burning in the corner of the room. Clara screamed. Not the doll, the real girl, still standing somewhere behind her. The flames burst up. Clara's face began to melt. The doll screamed louder. Miss Alira roared, her stitched mouth splitting open as if torn by invisible hands. The walls shook. Dolls fell off shelves. Then the room began to collapse, bricks falling, wood breaking, fire spreading. Emily held her hands over her head and shouted, "Give me my mom back." A blinding white light flashed. And suddenly, everything stopped. Emily was back in her room. Morning sunlight poured through the window. Birds chirped outside. She sat up on her bed, breathing fast. Had it all been a nightmare? Then a voice. "Emily." She turned. Her mom was standing at the door, alive, normal. No stitches. No blank eyes. Emily ran to her and hugged her tight, crying. Her mom whispered, "What's wrong, sweetie?" Emily didn't know what to say. Just that it was finally over. Or so she thought. Because, on the living room shelf, sat a brand new doll. Not Clara, but one that looked exactly like Emily. And when Emily turned her back, the doll smiled. Emily thought it was over. She really did. She and her mom had breakfast together that morning. The sky was blue. The birds were singing. The house felt normal again. No dolls. No voices. No darkness. But when Emily walked into the living room, her heart froze. There, sitting perfectly on the shelf, was a new doll. This one had brown hair, tied in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a purple hoodie. Exactly what Emily had worn last night. She moved closer, staring at the doll's face. Same freckles. Same green eyes. Even the tiny scar on the chin she got when she fell off her bike as a kid. It was her. It was Emily. She picked it up slowly. The doll's head tilted just slightly. Emily blinked. Now the doll's arms were in a different position. "Mom," Emily called out, voice shaking. Her mom came in, wiping her hands. "What is it?" Emily showed her the doll. Her mom smiled. "That's cute. Did you make it?" Emily stared at her. Her mom didn't remember anything. Not the basement. Not Clara. Not the doll maker. It was like her memory had been wiped clean. Emily didn't reply. She placed the doll on the table and went back to her room. She opened her laptop and searched again. Miss Alira, the doll maker. Nothing. No articles. No photos. No records. It was like Alira had never existed. Suddenly, a message popped up on her screen. From an unknown sender. Subject, "Year past." Message, "But the game never really ends." Attached a photo of Emily sleeping from last night. Emily slammed the laptop shut. She looked at her closet mirror. For a second, she saw a reflection that wasn't hers. A pale woman. Black hair. No eyes. And then, gone. Emily ran to the doll on the table. But it was gone. In its place was a note. "One soul at a time until the collection is complete." The message still burned in Emily's mind. One soul at a time until the collection is complete. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, terribly wrong. She tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she was just too tired. But deep inside, she knew that whatever had happened in that strange world was still happening. And now the game wasn't over. As she walked through the house, trying to distract herself, the mailman knocked on the door. Emily opened it. "Package for you, ma'am," he said, handing her a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. Her heart skipped a beat. The handwriting on the box was familiar. It was the dollmaker's handwriting. Before she could ask anything, the mailman smiled strangely and turned away. Emily stood frozen for a second before hurriedly tearing open the box. Inside was a doll. Not just any doll. It was exactly like her mom. Red hair, green eyes, same smile, same clothes. A tiny note was tucked in its hands. It read, "One soul saved. One soul lost. This is how the game continues." Emily's heart raced. This was insane. The game had crossed the line from something she could handle to a nightmare she could never escape. Suddenly, her mom called from the kitchen, "Emily, what's that you're holding?" Emily quickly stuffed the doll back into the box, but when she looked up, her mom was standing in front of her. Except it wasn't her mom. This woman was pale, with long black hair. No eyes. "Miss Alira," Emily whispered. The figure smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was a twisted, malicious grin. "I've been waiting for you, Emily," Alira said in a cold voice that sent shivers down Emily's spine. "You see, the game has always been about balance. Souls need to be traded." Emily backed away. You can't be real. You can't have come back." "Oh, but I have," Alira said, stepping closer. "The game never ends. You thought you won, but your soul is already mine. It was always mine." Emily's mind raced. If Alira had taken her soul, then why was she still here? Then, the answer hit her like a lightning bolt: the doll. The doll was the key. She needed to get rid of it. She needed to destroy it. "You're not taking anyone else," Emily screamed. She grabbed the doll from the box and threw it into the fire. But as it burned, the room around her shuddered. The flames grew brighter. And the door slammed shut. Emily was trapped again. Behind her, a voice echoed. "That wasn't the real doll." Emily spun around, her breath catching in her throat. The doll was back. And this time, it was holding a new note. "You burned the wrong one. Now, the one who made the mistake will pay." The walls around Emily began to crack, splintering like the doll was controlling them. She realized she hadn't destroyed Miss Alira's real doll. The real doll was still out there somewhere in the house. Emily had to find it before it was too late. Emily's heart pounded as the walls continued to crack. The doll with her mom's face grinned at her from the table, as if mocking her. She could feel the air growing heavier, the temperature dropping. Miss Alira was close, watching. Emily needed to find the real doll before she became part of the collection. She glanced around the room, her mind racing. The doll in the fire had been fake, a trick, but where was the real one? She couldn't trust anything anymore. Her eyes flickered toward the bookshelf, the one with old family photos. Something caught her eye. A hidden compartment in the back of the shelf. Emily rushed over and pried it open. Inside was a dusty old box, locked with a rusty key. She grabbed the key from a drawer, her hands trembling, and unlocked the box. To her shock, inside was another doll, but this one was different. This one had no face. Instead, it had two glowing red eyes sewn onto its head. Miss Alira's work. The moment Emily touched the doll, the air around her thickened. She could hear whispers in her ears. The room spun, and suddenly, she was no longer in her house. She was back in that twisted world. The same place where she'd met Miss Alira before. The dollmaker's world. There were dolls everywhere, hundreds of them. All with human faces, all sitting perfectly still. But Emily could feel their eyes on her, waiting. And there, standing in the center of the room, was Miss Alira. "You're getting close, Emily," Alira's voice echoed. "But you're too late. Once the doll is touched, the game becomes irreversible." Emily backed away, holding the doll tightly. "What do you want from me?" Alira laughed softly, her face distorted in the dim light. "I don't want anything from you. You were never supposed to escape. But now you've made it so much more interesting." The doll in Emily's hands began to glow. Suddenly, the walls of the room started to close in, trapping her in an inescapable circle. The dolls around her began to move, slowly. Their faces twisted into grotesque shapes, and they started chanting. "One for the soul, one for the doll. No one escapes, no one is free. Take the doll, and you will see." Emily felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She spun around. Her mom. But this was not the same loving face she had known. This was a hollow version, with stitched lips and empty eyes. "Emily, it's time to join me." Emily's stomach dropped. It wasn't her mom at all. It was another doll, another soul trapped forever in Miss Alira's game. "No," Emily screamed. "You're not my mom." The doll reached out, its cold hands grabbing Emily's wrist. The grip tightened. Her breath caught in her throat. The dolls all started moving faster, surrounding her, closing in. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't escape. I told you, Miss Alira's voice echoed in the distance, the game never ends. Once you touch the doll, you're bound forever. But then something strange happened. The doll in Emily's hands glowed brighter. She held it up high, her hands trembling. A sudden burst of light exploded from it, scattering the dolls and sending them flying back. In that instant, the walls stopped closing. The room began to shake violently. The dolls screamed, their voices mixing with Miss Alira's distorted laughter. Emily knew she had only moments before everything collapsed again. She ran. Through the twisting corridors, down long, endless hallways, she could hear the voices of the dolls chasing her. She couldn't stop. She couldn't let herself be caught again. The world around her blacked out. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed to the ground. When she opened her eyes, she was back in her house. The doll was gone. The air was still. The house was silent. But the feeling that something was wrong still hung in the air. Emily looked at her phone. A new message. From an unknown number. The game is still on. And there, in the message, was a photo of her mom holding the doll, smiling. Emily felt her breath catch in her throat as she stared at the message on her phone. The game is still on. The picture showed her mom, smiling in the living room, holding the doll with her face, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She had just seen her mom in the kitchen moments ago, perfectly fine. And now this. It didn't make sense. Was this another trick? Or was something far darker at work? Before Emily could even think, the doorbell rang. The sharp, sudden sound made her jump. Her heart raced as she moved toward the door, slowly opening it. There was no one there, just a small, sealed envelope on the doorstep. With trembling hands, she picked it up and opened it. Inside, there was a note, the handwriting strangely familiar. The clock is ticking, Emily. Time to make your choice. Don't let it slip away this time. Beneath the note was another photograph, this time of the doll, placed in the center of her house. It was placed on her mom's favorite armchair in the living room. The eyes on the doll stared back at Emily from the photo, like they were watching her, waiting for her next move. The moment she touched the photo, she felt the cold presence of Miss Alira behind her, whispering, "One more step, and you'll never return." Emily spun around. There, standing in the doorway of the living room, was Miss Alira herself. Her eyes were voids of darkness, her smile twisted and wide. "The time has come, Emily," Miss Alira said, her voice smooth as honey yet thick with malice. "One more soul must be added to complete the game. You've reached the final level." Emily stumbled backward, but she didn't back down. The doll was still out there. She could feel it. It was near. "You won't win, Miss Alira," Emily shouted, gathering the last of her strength. Miss Alira laughed, her voice a low, distorted echo. "We will see about that. You've already made your choice. The moment you let the doll into your house, you sealed your fate." Emily took a deep breath. She had to act fast. She couldn't let Alira win. She couldn't let the game consume everything. But as she turned to face the room, she noticed something terrible. Her mom was standing next to the doll, but this wasn't the woman she knew. This was another doll, with a stitched mouth and hollow eyes, standing perfectly still. "Mom!" Emily screamed. The doll's head slowly turned toward her, a slow smile spreading across its face. In that moment, Emily realized the truth. It had all been a trap. The dolls weren't just creations. They were souls. Souls trapped and twisted by the dollmaker to build an army. Emily's mom had been taken, her body replaced by a doll, a vessel for Alira's power. She was running out of time. "You are my final piece," Miss Alira said, her voice now filling the room with a heavy presence. "But don't worry. You'll join your mother soon enough." Emily glanced around. The walls seemed to be closing in once again. She had no choice now. She grabbed the doll from the armchair and held it high above her head. It was the only way to end this. The doll's eyes glowed brighter. Emily's hands trembled. But she had to do it. She threw it into the fire. The flames blazed up. The room filled with smoke, and screams echoed in the air. Miss Alira howled, the sound deafening, as the dolls around Emily began to disintegrate. The house shook violently, the walls cracking. Emily clutched her head in agony, but she held her ground. She couldn't back down now. Then, as quickly as it had all started, everything stopped. The fire died down, and the room was silent again. Emily opened her eyes. The dolls were gone. The house was still. But her mom was standing there. Alive. Normal. She was holding Emily's hand, smiling gently. "It's over, Emily. You did it." Emily blinked. She didn't know whether to cry or scream, but one thing was certain, the nightmare had ended. Or had it? Emily could feel the weight of the doll in her hands, but she couldn't bring herself to drop it. The room was dim, but the doll's glowing red eyes kept drawing her attention. It felt as though it was alive, watching her every move. The air grew heavier, suffocating her as she turned to face her mom once again, who was standing in front of her, but there was something wrong. Her mom's face was twisted, distorted, as if it was being controlled by some unseen force. Emily stumbled back, her heart hammering in her chest. No, not again. But then something strange happened. The doll in her hands shuddered, its eyes flashing brightly before the temperature in the room dropped drastically. Suddenly, the world around Emily snapped. The twisted dolls in the room, those with their stitched mouths and hollow eyes, started to break apart. Pieces of porcelain and fabric scattered around the room like a violent storm, crashing to the floor with loud cracks. In the distance, Emily heard a voice. It was Miss Alira, but it was no longer mocking. It was weak, fading. "You've won, Emily." The voice sounded distant, as though it were coming from beyond a veil. "You've broken the curse. You've destroyed the dolls." Emily's breath caught. "What do you mean, I've won?" The doll she had been holding began to dissolve in her hands. The red eyes faded, and the doll's face began to crack, like glass shattering. A soft glow emanated from it as the last of its power dissipated. Before her eyes, the whole room started to shift. The walls, the furniture, the dolls, everything melted away, and she was left standing in a bright, peaceful place. The room that had once been so full of horror was now a peaceful, calm garden. Emily blinked, her mind spinning. The garden was full of flowers, birds chirping, and a soft breeze blowing. She looked around, confused, but there was something else. In the center of the garden, her mom stood, no longer a doll, no longer distorted. She was real again. Emily's heart swelled with relief, but she had to ask, "What happened? What's going on?" Her mom smiled gently, her eyes warm. "You broke the curse, Emily. You didn't just destroy the dolls. You freed the souls trapped inside them. The dolls were not just toys, they were souls, bound by Miss Alira's dark magic. But your bravery, your strength, allowed those souls to be freed." Emily felt her legs go weak as she collapsed to her knees, overwhelmed. Her mom knelt down beside her, wrapping her in a warm embrace. "It's over now, Emily. You did it. You saved us all." And just like that, the world around them transformed once again. They were back in their home, but it was different. Peaceful. The dolls that once haunted her house were gone. The strange feeling that had lingered for so long was gone. Her house was finally free. As Emily stood, her heart still racing from the terror she'd endured, she realized something: she had conquered the unimaginable. She had faced the darkest fear anyone could ever experience and had overcome it. Her mother stood beside her, smiling. The house was silent, but it was a comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after a storm. Emily smiled back, wiping away a tear. She had won. Against the terror. Against the dolls. And against the dollmaker herself. The game was over. And this time Emily had come out victorious.